Feeling something special for you. And now you got me thinking till the sun comes up. Daylight in my mind is dreaming. And I'm saying too much couldn't be enough. But I'll be waiting for the moment to take me to you. Just a couple steps from going over the moon. I wanna move with your body, baby. I wanna move with your body, baby. I wanna move with your body, baby. Let me move with your body, baby. Perfection in the way that you move. Boy, you got it. Devotion's getting stronger with all that you do. But I'll be waiting for the moment to take me to you. Yeah, I'll be waiting. I'm just a couple steps from over the moon. I wanna move with your body, baby. I wanna move with your body, baby. I wanna move with your body, baby. Let me move with your body, baby. Oh yeah.
Talking till the first light of dawn. Just like fate without no warning. It hit me so hard. Oh, I'm so sorry, girl, I didn't
some time, thinking about the day that we met.
I wish I could tape my box to my. I need some tape.
Can't take my eyes off your silhouette.
I have a box and
I have planned it out so carefully. I know the things that you like. We'll be singing and dancing on the way. I got plans for you all day, all night. 'Cause we're running out of time. So cover your eyes, 'cause I have a surprise for you. Baby, it's your birthday. Now you don't have to wait no more. So get ready, get ready, get ready. Just want you for myself all day. Let me show you what I got in store. So get ready, get ready, get ready. I can't take my eyes off you. I'll make it like every day is your birthday. I want to spend my life with you. And now it's time to celebrate. 'Cause we're running out of time. So cover your eyes, 'cause I have a surprise for you. Baby, it's your birthday. Baby, it's your birthday. Baby, it's your birthday. Now you don't have to wait no more. So get ready, get ready, get ready. Just want you for myself all day. Let me show you what I got in store. So get ready, get ready, get ready. Baby, it's your birthday. Now you don't have to wait no more. So get ready, get ready, get ready. Just want you for myself all day. Let me show you what I got in store. So get ready, get ready, get ready. Baby, it's your birthday. Baby, it's your birthday, yeah.
Though the wind is very cold, you hold me, try to melt my soul. Makes it harder to say goodbye. Your whirling hair and tender eyes makes me feel as cold as ice. Anyway, I say goodbye. In my dreams, we were meant to be, but everything feels wrong. The sky is gray, times are changing. This is the end of everything, but it's hard to say goodbye. In my dreams, we were meant to be, but everything feels wrong. Just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel blind. At last we say goodbye. In my dreams, we were meant to be, but everything feels wrong. Just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel right. Just doesn't feel right. Just doesn't feel I believe in you, me, you, me, you, me, you, me, yeah. I believe in you, me, you, me, you, me, you, me, yeah. Let's stay here for a lifetime underneath the moonlight, 'cause I don't want us to go. No, I don't want us to go. Yeah, you could be my lifeline, you could be my sunshine. In a world so full of pain, can you make it go away? Used to be so sad that love was lost, but now it's here to stay. Yeah, I used to be uncomfortable, but look at me today. Never thought I'd find someone like you, someone to show the way. But now I know you're the answer to my prayer. You and me must be right. Something's in the air, I can feel it now. You and me must do something right. We can't get enough of us. You and me every night, aiming for the stars with the love so bright. You and me must do something right. Baby, I believe in us. I believe in you and me, you and me, you and me, you and me, yeah. I believe in you and me, you and me, you and me, you and me, yeah. I'm sorry for the burden, sorry I was hurting, but my scars are almost healed. Yeah, my scars are almost healed. Yeah, I'm feeling like a child now. Everything's alright now, and it's all because of you. You made the flower in me bloom. Used to be afraid of everything, but now there's no more fear. Yeah, I used to let nobody in and hide my face with tears. Always thought of you as someone who can love someone like me, but I was wrong. Maybe now I believe. You and me must be right. Something's in the air, I can feel it now. You and me must do something right. We can't get enough of us. You and me every night, aiming for the stars with the love so bright. You and me must do something right. Baby, I believe in us. I believe in you and me, you and me, you and me, you and me, yeah. I believe in
been thinking about your smile. I've been thinking that I can't let you go. Hey, can you wait a little while? Why we're holding back, I don't know. I guess I'm all confused about you, about you. You're my one temptation, yeah. I don't know why I pretend to, that I don't really care about you. Maybe I'm indifferent, maybe I'm not thinking straight. I know I shouldn't play these games. Oh, maybe I'm indifferent, maybe I'm not thinking straight. I know I shouldn't play these games.
Hello friends, fam, and community at ABC. My name is Jada Imani, and I'm so grateful to be here with you all today at Building the Base, Learning from Inside Organizing. It is an honor to be here because I believe that the work you're doing in building coalition from within confinement and from within this broken society, building coalitions and collaborating, working together is changing the course of history and reversing systemic violence in tremendous ways. So thank you for the work that you're doing, and thank you for everyone who is here in support and solidarity. Today I'm going to perform a song called Just Wait, and I hope you enjoy it. Yeah. One for the closure, my daddy getting sober. Help from within, how we taking about throne. When it's set mess, try to play us like controller. We gon' think bigger than the boxes that we scroll on. When you see youth, you look at the future's elders. Look at the elders, the spirit is the youth. At one point in time, collapse delivered back to you. You gotta know yourself, know your history, your truth. Everything is influence, be careful who we sitting with. Just full like my plate, carrying the sentiments to all the generations running back and me the pilgrim. Keep my mind intact while I gather where my spirit is. Keep my mind intact while I gather where my spirit is. Keep my mind intact while I gather what I gather. I wrote this for you now. Just wait, just wait. Was waiting for you now. It's great, I promise. I wrote this for you now. Just wait, mom. Was waiting for you now. It's great, it's waiting for you. Don't worry, I'm 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 One for the culture, my brother getting sober. Help from within, how we battling corona. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't kick it, I'm a soul. Be who you want, every day is a do over. Saw it once in the mind, saw it twice in real life. You got a workshop and it's right between your eyes. You make a curse stop every time you kinda light. You make reverse karma, free your family of the bind. Yeah, can't nobody tell you what you supposed to do. Can't nobody hold a limit over you. Deliver your magic, it is overdue. Deliver the world from the old to new. Ain't no newbies, be here for 2 weeks. We spent lifetimes right on the blue. They don't fight crime, they bring you to street. They built more cages, the caging our whole team. Nah, I say we get organized, we fight for life because we know we never die. They take our bodies, our money with overdrive. Floyd will still be a twinkle in his daughter's eyes. A season of torment is ending, it's falling, it's raining, it's falling. It's cleaning us all in the evil, it's scarring, it's cleansing us holy. I wrote this for you now. Just wait, was waiting for you now. It's great, I promise. I wrote this for you now. Just wait, mom. Was
Thank you, Jada Amani, for that amazing performance, and thank you for always being a voice for the people. Greetings, my name is Kriya Gomez. We would like everyone to take a moment to acknowledge and recognize the original people of whose territory and traditional homeland we are currently gathered on, and all Indigenous residents and their ancestors whose land was taken through genocide, occupation, and war to form what is known as the United States. I would like to take a moment to recognize and honor the Ohlone, whose land I and the Ella Baker Center call home, also known as Oakland. We would also like to acknowledge our Indigenous relatives from territories across California, from Yuki to Kumeyaay, where our siblings and loved ones are being held captive in institutions and prisons. There are more than 500 broken treaties that define the relationship between Native Americans and the U.S. government. The original people of North America, known as the American Indians and First Nations people, continue to fight to be recognized as the original stewards and caretakers of this land. They have never nor will ever cede their ancestral homelands to the U.S. government. When we say land back, it is a call to action of our people and for our allies to support us in demanding our right to reestablish our political and economic control and stewardship of the land, as well as our Indigenous sovereignty. I would also like us to take a moment to acknowledge all of our missing and murdered Indigenous women, sisters, and siblings that have not made it home. To learn more about the land and territory you are currently on, visit www.native-land.ca.
Beautiful. Just want to say thank you, Jada, for that beautiful gift, the prayer that you blessed us with. Kriya, thank you for the prayer and for acknowledging the land we stand on. Today is also a very special day in my cultura. It's El Día de los Muertos. And I do want to take a moment to remember all of those who've transitioned to the spirit world and ask our ancestors to continue to guide our path and continue to guide our journey as we continue to build a world without prisons and police. Before I start, I want to thank the Levinson family, Levinson Plus family, for partnering with us. Thank you for partnering with us in such an authentic, trusting, and loving way. We really couldn't have done this without you, all your support. During my incarceration, I learned about people like George Jackson, Mumia Abdul-Jamal, Geronimo Pratt, Angela Davis, Leonard Peltier, there's folks who are still not free, but who have been organizing and who have inspired me to fight, who have taught me and inspired me to break down prison walls mentally and physically, how to organize on the inside. I also know that there's many people whose names don't ring the same and whose names you probably haven't heard of, but they ring loud in prison yards and they ring loud on the streets. Many of them have made it possible for us to have this conversation and do this work here today. So I want to honor them. And many of them have given their lives to make the change, this change possible. Today, you'll learn about them. You'll learn and you'll hear about our George Jacksons and our Asadas of our time. You will learn lessons from organizers on the inside and on the outside. You will leave inspired to do your part. So I want to thank you for being here and for coming tonight to listen to these gems. The Inside Outside Fellowship is a program designed to support the brilliance, the courageous freedom fighters on the inside. They have informed Ella Baker Center's policy work for years. They are conduits of information and knowledge. They are the leaders of today. This program doesn't wait. This is a program that doesn't wait for liberation or power from the top or programs to come in. They are seizing power. They are together. They are building the base. And so I have the immense pleasure and honor to introduce our amazing moderator for today and want to introduce James King. Now, and James is Ella Baker Center's campaign manager. He is the architect and the visionary who built pipelines of policy work while he was incarcerated. James, like others you'll hear from today, joined the team immediately after being released from prison. And James has been relentless in his fight for freedom while he continues to build the leadership and mentorship of others. James, it's been an honor to work beside you and get to do this work with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marlene. For as long as there's been captivity, there's been resistance. People who have been incarcerated in California have a long, oft untold history of organizing, building power, working to shape the laws and policies that impact them. There have been heartbreakingly difficult struggles for the most basic of gains, like cleaning supplies, decent meals, or ending indeterminate solitary confinement. I myself was an incarcerated organizer and advocate. I first began organizing during the second decade of my imprisonment. The goals we sought were to influence the shape of criminal justice reform in California, to build relationships with non-incarcerated advocates in the movement, and for us as people who were incarcerated to better understand our power and value to the movement. After my release in 2020, EBC launched the Inside Outside Fellowship Program in order to share our access and platforms with incarcerated organizers, to learn from them about the changes needed and give them learning opportunities about the archaic legislative process. Very quickly, fellowship has become integral to who we are as an organization and how we build power as members of a larger community and movement. This year, our Inside Fellows helped pass the Racial Justice Act for All. It's a bill that will offer new opportunities for relief for thousands of people whose convictions and sentences were impacted by their race, including hundreds of people on death row. Our Inside Fellow Dortel was a key participant in efforts to pass SB 300, which would have offered the first significant relief ever for people convicted of life without the possibility of parole. And while that legislation has not yet passed, it has produced one of the most powerful coalitions of currently formerly incarcerated advocates, family members, and community members this state has ever seen. Equally important, the investments we're making in the development and leadership of incarcerated advocates are contributing to organizing at multiple prisons. There are now policy and civic engagement groups at each of the prisons our fellows are at, and dozens of people are learning policy, building relationships with outside community advocates, and helping shape the direction of criminal justice reform, California. And I just want to emphasize, we don't have a deficit-based relationship with our fellows. We're not saving or organizing them. We're collectively doing this together. Their contributions are making our work more effective and helping us win. The resources we send in are multiplied. We send in curriculum of readings, and it's shared throughout the prisons. People are being trained up collectively, investing in more than just our direct relationships with the fellows. And the policies that all come together to pass then impact people in every state prison, while also normalizing civic engagement by communities that have been historically disenfranchised. Today, we'll hear recordings from two of our fellows. We're hoping another will be able to call in and participate in the panel discussion we'll be having shortly. So without further ado, let me introduce our fellows. First fellow we'll hear from today is Mara Placencia. Mara's been an organizer since 2016, working to end the suicide crisis at the California Institution for Women and creating a youth mentor organization to train and support youth to become better mentors and community leaders. She's also the proud mother of Angel and Samira Flores. And we asked Mara, when you applied to be an Inside Fellow, what unique organizing skills, practices, perspectives did you want to bring to the larger movement? And since beginning your fellowship, how have you and folks you build with Inside grown within your power?
When I applied for the Inside Fellowship at Ella Baker Center, I wanted to share the stories of the many injustices that go unnoticed within the prison system. I believed that exposure of the systemic abuse would compel others in a position to help us, to fight for better treatment and more just policies. By developing the discernment and knowledge to distinguish when CDCR and the judicial system is violating our rights, I have gained insight to effectively collect the relevant data necessary to share with the Ella Baker Center team so that they can be our voice on the outside. I have also been able to provide solutions that would be more effective to some of the problems on the inside. By the same token, joining Ella Baker Center helped me grow as I learned the strategic ways necessary to get policies passed into law. I have been empowered by the support that the Ella Baker Center team has bestowed upon me. Furthermore, the information that EBC shares with me, I have been able to share with my peers within the prison, and it has developed a momentum of hope, passion to continue to persevere. The fellowship also opened up many people to join this fight by being forthcoming in sharing their stories as a means to motivate the larger movement. I have been able to use my intellect, passion, and determination to be a bridge between my peers and the Ella Baker Center team by providing an outlet for information and ideas demonstrating areas of the incarcerated communities where the system needs change. In order to build the base, we must understand the underlying case in which we are preparing for. I believe in the empowerment of communities regardless of the type of dwelling place, whether prisons, homes, work sites. Our communities consist of people, transgender, binary individuals, men, women, and children of all races and religious beliefs. Listening is key. This establishes the need of others. Then, obtaining the resources and organizing how to implement and share knowledge leads to the practice of helps and works. You help me to help you. My perspective is my overall view of giving advice, providing direction, and fighting to change the unjust into just opportunities for all within the facility that practices punitive methods, not rehabilitative practices. Effective approaches with some measures of strategic thought can remove barriers to make way for a movement of change. Thank you.
Mara says she's a bridge. I'd argue that she's that next institution that brings communities together. Next up, we have Steve Brooks. Steve is an outspoken advocate for decarceration, and he's an award-winning journalist. He played an instrumental role in the move to end race-based lockdowns. He's also been a part of the San Quentin Inside Organizing team since 2019. He wrote several articles covering the COVID outbreak at San Quentin in the summer of 2020, and he's currently the Journalism Guild chair for San Quentin News and manager of San Quentin's Wall City magazine. We asked Steve, can you describe an instance in which you felt a tension between acknowledging your skills as an organizer while being in a setting that doesn't fully acknowledge one's humanity? How have you continued to grow your skills despite that tension? And how has that tension sharpened your organizing skills?
So the question I think that you're asking me is, how do I deal with the tension of being an organizer in a dehumanizing place like prison? That's a pretty good question. I appreciate that question. There's never been a moment during my time in prison that I haven't felt a little bit of tension. Prison is a place full of tension. It's a place of conflict and dissatisfaction, and it saturates you with feelings of dehumanization, isolation, and social death. But I tend to think of the work of an organizer as the work of humanizing myself. It's a way for me to reinstitute myself into the social contract. It's my way of saying that I'm not a defeated person, that I'm not dead. I may be in prison, but my mind is not in prison. I'm somewhere situated in this world with the power to help bring about change, and change starts with myself. And I think a lot of this thinking came from both spiritual and educational enlightenment. So one of the most tense things I did was, one of the first things I did as an inside fellow was invite James King and Emily Harris back inside San Quentin. I invited two abolitionists inside of a prison. They had stood outside the gates of protesting and screaming freedom all. And Emily had brought in some brochures that had my picture on them describing me as an inside organizer. But despite that tension, I had made the decision to highlight the people inside the movement by using all the media resources I had available. I did it so James and Emily could see their friends and family inside San Quentin. I think I also did it to try to help transform the consciousness of the people inside who were suffering the very dehumanization we're talking about, to give them a vision of hope. Taking on the role of an inside organizer for me is a logical reaction to dehumanization. It is who I am as a person. I've always been willing to fight for justice, even when I had a distorted view of what justice was. I've always been willing to speak truth to power. But not everybody in here is equipped to be an organizer. Some people don't know how to fight for themselves. Some suffer from mental illness, addiction, Stockholm syndrome, or there's just simple fear. And don't get me wrong, I do have fear, but not to the point of inaction. In fact, fear is probably what drives me the most. Over the years, I've had my cells destroyed, I've been stripped naked and humiliated, I've been placed in isolation, but I've also been educated by these experiences, and that is what has helped reduce my tension and strengthen my resolve to help bring about change. So when it comes to tension and organizing and being in prisons, tension is a tool that helps drive me to be better. It drives me to be a better writer. It drives me to be a better speaker. It drives me to be a better teacher. It drives me to be a better leader. And it drives me to be a better human being. That's how I deal with tension when it comes to organizing in a dehumanizing place like prison.
I get chills when I listen to Steve talk about his organizing and his passion, that he's like walked in since I've known him. He is someone who brings people together, who lifts up the work and is really living his values. Right now, I'd like to bring in our panelists. Today, we have with us Dortel Williams. He's on, we'll be able to hear him. We won't be able to actually see him. Dortel is 56 years old. He's been incarcerated since the age of 23. And while incarcerated, he's earned a paralegal certificate, a BA in communication studies, and he is a prolific essayist. He focuses on crime, survivor justice, personal transformation for himself and others, and prison reform. He also led an academic group on Lancaster's Honor Yard for over a decade, accumulating over 8,000 hours of peer-to-peer instruction. We also have with us Isabella Isa Borgeson. She's a queer community organizer and poet from Oakland. Isa joined the Stop San Quentin Outbreak Coalition in 2020, calling for large-scale releases in response to COVID-19 outbreaks across California state prisons. In 2021, she was selected as our inaugural Outside Fellow. And Isa now manages this fellowship at EBC while also working on people-powered legislative campaigns and advocating for decarceration. We also have with us the amazing Tan Tran. Tan's an artist and an organizer from Sacramento, California. Since March 2019, Tan's been part of the San Quentin Inside organizing team, supporting EBC with legislation. And during the pandemic, he supported Stop San Quentin Outbreak Coalition efforts for decarceration through writing and speaking with the media. In 2021, he officially joined the EBC policy team as our inaugural Inside Fellow. Today, he's EBC's Senior Fellow. He's tasked with helping grow the Inside Outside Fellowship program, creating media content and coalition work to impact policy. Welcome, everybody. Great to see you all. Dortel, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you good.
All right. So first question, I just want to ask, can you speak to the history of inside organizing, its role in leading reform movements, and what has that leadership from the inside looked like recently over the past several years?
Yes, I would say that it came in maybe 3 phases. Before I came in the 70s, we had the George Jackson era, if we can call it that. And it was a violent era, but the good thing about that era was that they had this symbiotic relationship with outside organizers, and so they had that support, kind of like what we have today with Ella Baker, with the Inside Fellows. So that still mirrors today, and that's good. And then the second phase was litigation, and during that phase, you had individuals litigating for medical care, for violence, for racial separation, those types of things. And then it finally culminated in just a few years ago in the Coleman Barter case, where basically the Supreme Court ruled that there were so many people incarcerated and it was so overcrowded that they had to limit or cap the population to 137% instead of the 200% that it was before. And then the last, the era that I'm in now was basically where we do all of the above except for the violence. We litigate, we mentor one another, we help with board, and basically the challenge is just being able to communicate, because now that the individual yards are separated into 4 different facilities, which makes it really difficult to communicate.
Thanks, Dortel. And I just want to let our audience know, Dortel's going to be coming in and out during the panel discussion. Because he's currently incarcerated, he's only able to call in certain time increments. He's about to go offline, and he'll be back to hopefully to answer some more questions towards the end of the discussion. See you in a few, Dortel. Turning to you, Issa, can you describe some of your successes organizing and supporting the Inside Fellows in their organizing, particularly in regards to integrating them into strategic leadership in Stop San Quentin Outbreak Coalition?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, James. Hi, Dortel. Hope you can call back. Yeah, I think the fellowship really operates under a model that says people closest to the problem are also closest to the solution. And I really agree with what you named earlier, James, that we're not organizing folks inside. We're trying to collectively do this work together. And we know that incarcerated organizers bring far more than their lived experience to this work. And just like it's essential to compensate folks inside for the work they're doing to lead our movements and every day to decarcerate and close our prisons, it's also important to integrate folks into positions of strategic leadership, and not just silo folks into solely speaking from their lived experience. We all know that that's extremely important work, but it's in no way the only value add that inside organizers bring to our movements. I think for me, Stop San Quentin Outbreak Coalition was a big entry point to my work with inside-outside organizing practices. I worked with Tan, I worked with my best friend Adamu, and other currently incarcerated community members at San Quentin, doing rapid response organizing and really calling for decarceration in the face of COVID outbreaks across California state prisons. We really took the leadership of inside organizers at San Quentin in that coalition. They drafted the demands of our coalition. They brainstormed the actions that we executed on the outside. They spoke directly to the media about conditions that they were facing during the pandemic. And I think one example that I can think of the power and impact of what can happen when room is made for folks to lead this work from the inside is July 2020. We planned a rally and press conference in front of the San Quentin gates, through the ideas and also amplifying the demands that have been crafted by folks inside. James, I remember you actually read a statement from Tan at that press conference. And the next day, the governor mandated early releases for nearly 8,000 incarcerated folks. And we know that's not enough. Like, of course, we kept pushing, calling for a 50% reduction in California's prison population, which was a direct demand from our folks inside. And for years, like, these demands from incarcerated community members served as essential pillars in grounding our work as a coalition.
Thanks. I got to just ask as a follow-up, given the structural barriers that exist, how does that impact and the way that you approach the work?
Yeah, for sure. I would love to hear Tan's answer to this too. And just, I think in the instance of the Stop San Quentin Outbreak Coalition, the structural barriers we were facing was very much in the context of COVID outbreaks. Quite literally, I know, like, collaborating with Tan as we were the first inside and outside fellows. Tan, like, I remember you were on lockdown in your cell for 23 hours a day for months for like a majority of our pilot fellowship programs together. And we know that these structural barriers are not specific to any single pandemic. They're not specific to COVID. They're inherent to organizing within the prison industrial complex, right? And the majority, if not entirety, of our communication with Inside Fellows, as another example, is monitored by CDCR. And so I think we really try to give agency to our Inside Fellows to manage and assess their own risk in participating in this work. But we also know that that's the reality and that's the risk of this work. And I remember like this time last year, Dortel was unexpectedly transferred to a different prison in the middle of our interview process to select the next Inside Fellows. We took his final interview with him over a collect phone call just hours after he had gotten out of solitary confinement, where he was quarantining for days, and he still hadn't had any of his possessions or any of his notes from the calls with us. And so I say this all to say, I think sometimes a deep commitment to inside-outside organizing practices just requires that we shift work plans, that we prioritize the needs and the urgent realities that arise in this work. And that's the core goal of the Inside Outside Fellowship. We want to organize with people inside as a strategy to breach the barriers designed to maintain and uphold the PIC.
Thanks, Issa. Coming to you, Tan. I'd love to hear you describe those successes from the other side. You were incarcerated during a lot of the work with Stop San Quentin, the Outbreak Coalition. And I know that like folks are advocating for their own individual freedom. There's ego and politics in prison, yet you're in there building relationships and power. And so how did you approach that?
Absolutely. Well, first, I want to thank everybody for showing up. Like, I wish we could connect in person. It's kind of weird just talking through y'all through a screen. But to answer your question, James, like, in regard to the successes and victories we had on the inside, there's like a huge long list of successes that we don't hear about on the outside, right? Because people are currently incarcerated and they're pushing through major legislation. For example, SB 1437, the felony murder rule, SB 260 and 261, the youth parole bills, Proposition 17, allowing folks on parole to vote. These all came from currently incarcerated folks, right? And these are bills that they came up with and helped pass while incarcerated. So like when we're talking about successes and victories, right? And we're talking about this model, like this works. Right. And for the second part of the question, like despite egos and politics in prison, I was able to build relationships by just simply caring about people. Right. Just simply making time to listen to people. Right. Like I listened first and then I talked after. Only after listening was I able to like connect dots for folks. Right. Like I was able to help them understand that even if this bill I'm asking you to support right now does not affect you directly, the incremental nature of policy means that we'll start here and then next year we'll be able to do a bill that affects you. Right. Like I'm helping people understand that by investing in everyone's liberation, that's the best way to obtain your own liberation. So that's how I built relationships and power and built the base while inside. All right. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, it does. And I'm excited. We have Dortel back, and you all can't see Dortel, but I can. He's video chatting here.
No, I think I can see him, James.
Yeah. So Dortel. Oh, everyone. Oh, you're up.
You can all see Dortel.
Okay. All right. Let's go, technology. Dortel, I wanted to circle back. Thank you for sharing like about inside organizing over the years. Couldn't help but notice you didn't mention your own contributions. Like I've known you for 16 years now. And I remember when I first met you, you were writing letters to the editor. You were calling into radio shows. You were on the yard telling us we should write letters and we should be organizing and advocating. And I'm just really curious, like, how have you stayed so grounded and so passionate over the years, and what fuels you?
There's a funny dichotomy to that. So on the one hand, I see the inhumanity and it drives me to want to fix it. And, just seeing my fellow peers struggle to get, just to be treated with dignity. That motivates me. But at the same time, that little surprise that you just exhibited just a moment ago when you saw that was on the video, Well, imagine seeing that hundreds of times when you can explain something to a peer about political education or how, like Tom said, a specific law is going to benefit them. That same type of surprise is what I see hundreds of times over. And that motivates these guys to get engaged, to believe in themselves. And it's the beginning of learning to work together. And so that's the joy of it right there.
Thank you so much. Coming back around to you, Issa, you come into these relationships with a lot of power as a gatekeeper of sorts, with freedom and flexibility. And I'm just curious, can you speak to how you share your power and prioritize the power of folks who are inside?
Yeah, thanks, James. I think that's really important to talk about and to just like recognize that there are inherent contradictions that exist within this fellowship, namely because this fellowship exists and operates within the context of the prison industrial complex. And so while we're attempting to resource power amongst directly impacted community, the fact remains that our inside fellows this year, Dortel, Steve, Mara, Dortel here on the call with us, so happy you're on YouTube, are still incarcerated, right? And knowing that, we commit to collectively reflecting on and interrogating the power dynamics inherent to this work. I think for me personally, as someone who has never been incarcerated before and came to this work supporting my best friend and his own freedom journey, that interrogation of power and my own power imbalance feels particularly necessary to my role in this work and to my role on this team with the fellows. I know that often for me, the greatest work I can do in supporting this fellowship is getting out of the way, is connecting folks on the inside with non-incarcerated community advocates, with legislators, with people working on issues that they're advocating for inside, is doing the daily work of helping free folks get set up on the Getting Out application to send a message to Mara, or have a video visit with Dortel like we are now, or creating a budget that prioritizes folks at EBC taking on the phone, talking on the phone, or visiting our fellows inside prisons. And so I think in this way, removing myself from the equation is an attempt to create access to power and facilitate folks' direct collaboration and connection with our community inside in order to try to dismantle that gatekeeping or that gate itself. And I also just want to say, I think it's really an essential part of the strategy for sharing power is paying our folks inside, paying our folks equitably inside. And of course, like, investing time, capacity, resources towards supporting inside fellows in their own freedom efforts to come home and join us and to become the next outside fellows or become the next senior fellow like Tan is today. And by doing that, we're also ensuring that we're both resourcing the work and acknowledging that labor, but we're also ensuring that our connection to folks inside is far beyond just transactional.
Thank you so much. And I just want to circle back to 2 points you made. One, we're about investing in people, not disposing of people, and that's what informs and fuels the work. Secondly, that even I, as a formerly incarcerated person, am often asked for the currently incarcerated perspective, and I can't give it to you. Formerly incarcerated and currently incarcerated are not the same thing. What I can do is connect you with Dortel. What I can do is connect you with Steve or Mara. Tan, as a person that's gone from inside to outside into a more permanent role with the Ella Baker Center, what's that journey been like for you? And how are you continuing to build the leadership of currently incarcerated folks?
For sure. I'll just say this whole journey has been bananas. It's been wild. And I say that is because I never expected. When you went home, James, you told me, it's like, brother, I'm going to come back for you. And we're going to create a system where we get currently incarcerated people involved with this movement. You told me you was going to do that, and you shook my hand and you went home and you did it. That blew my mind, because of the work that Ella Baker Center has done and the work that you've done. You've brought me home today, and you got me involved with this work. You got Dortel in the room right now working with us, right? And I'll say this too, it's bananas when we say we mentor us, we really mean we mentor us. James, Dortel was your mentor, James. And then James was my mentor, right? And even me being one of the newest people at EBC, Marlene, our executive director, she makes time for little old Ton to mentor Ton, you know? So it's like, like when we say we mentor us, like we really mean it. So this journey has been, it's just been wild. And for the last part about like how I'm continuing to build leadership on the inside, like I'm taking the lessons that I'm learning from James throughout the years and now Marlene too, right? And I'm taking that and I'm passing it to the folks on the inside. I'm helping them understand that it's not enough to have an opinion. You need to have an informed opinion, right? You need to build relationships with people on the outside, yes, but you need to build relationships on the inside too. You need to pass on the knowledge that you've gained. So when you go home, you already built the base. Right. And one of the biggest things that I'm trying to teach my currently incarcerated folks too is something that I experienced coming into this work. And that thing was imposter syndrome. Right. We hear about this a lot. But me, I'm from South Sacramento. I was raised around drug dealers, pimps, and gang members. Right. And now I'm stepping into the policy world where now I'm around lawyers, organizers, and politicians. It's a culture shock for me. Right. But like I said earlier, like Marlene made time for me. She taught me like I belong in this movement. Right. And that's a message that I send to those inside. Like I tell them like it's OK to feel imposter syndrome, but I need you to know that you belong in this movement. Right. That you are this movement. Right. And that you need to continue building the base. And we need to continue bringing our folks that are currently incarcerated into the forefront of this work and continuing to build the base with them. So I hope that answers your question.
I mean, I'm so glad you spoke on belonging. Like I can remember even being incarcerated, like we talked about freedom, but we also talked about belonging. Oftentimes freedom is used as a proxy to not have to worry about the next person, but we belong together and it's all about inclusion. I want to do a quick round robin and I'm going to start with you, Dortel. Question is, you've each done amazing things with the fellowship and as fellows. What are you most proud of? Dortel?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I'm most proud of being a hub of the information that I get from EBC and from the people that I'm connected with through EBC, to have this information and pass it on to my peers, and to actually see them take the ball and roll with it. You know, so when we have brainstorming sessions, when we have sit downs about a strategic plan that we want to do with policy, I see them transferring to other institutions and taking that information and that knowledge with them. I see guys paroling and taking that information to their families and to their communities. And when I talk to them on the phone and we continue our relationships, building from the inside and the outside, I'm always proud to hear that they're still motivated to keep pushing, to learn. And the most recent example of that, it was when the coalition went out to Sacramento, and I was able to talk to a lot of guys who I had done decades in prison with, and there they were. They were out there at the Capitol. They were using their power. They were using their bodies, and they were expressing the power that they had, that we all shared, and exhibiting that in the community. So that's one of the main things I'm really proud of.
Fire. Isa, I'm going to throw it over to you. You've been with the fellowship from day one. What are you most proud of?
Yeah. I don't know if this is something I can be proud of, in that, like, I'm not sure that this is ours to that like we made this happen. But just like Ton coming home, like, I think we always talked about that, like the secret goal of the Inside Outside Fellowship was to have 2 outside fellows that first round. And just I think I was like really grateful to be like working with Ton under Ton's leadership. Like Ton got himself home, and that like to be part of a crew that was really ready to throw down in support of bringing our folks home and throw down resources, capacity, our connections. And working with folks, working with Ton's partner Lupe to like have those like legislative calls and like get those support letters and submit those applications and things. And so the fact that like, before we were doing these legislative visits together where Tom would call in to my phone and I would be like, Tom, you're on speakerphone. Please convince this legislator to vote for this bill right now. And then just like how much power that is to actually like be in Sacramento with Tom now and to be like doing that work. I think the most important goal always has to be like the humanity of our folks, and not just like passing some bill or legislation, but the bill or legislation is a tool to bring more of our folks home. And that like our commitment to our folks is grounded in our relationship to our folks. And that part is like our shared commitment to one another's liberation. So yeah, proudest or just most excited or most happy moment was getting that news that Tom was coming home.
Yeah, that was such an awesome day. Tom, over to you. What have you been most proud of during your time with the fellowship?
Oh man. Well, I'm super proud of our team, of course, but I think the thing I'm most proud of is that we're like EBC is like truly rooted in its values, right? Like when we say we're putting out a message and saying we're about we mentor us, like we've been mentoring us. When we saying build the base, and why we're here with y'all today is because we really been doing these things, right? And it really makes me proud. It makes me proud to say that because we're developing this culture, right? We're developing a culture and a model that says that currently incarcerated people are more valuable than just their testimonies. Currently incarcerated people are strategists. They're comms people. They can develop messaging, right? Like these people, we are capable of so much more than simply coming up here and spitting out our trauma for 30 seconds to a minute for a legislator to be like, all right, to change their mind. Like we belong in these rooms and conversations, and not just that, beyond building that culture, but compensating currently incarcerated people for their work, right? Like Issa named it earlier, but that's one of the values too that I find that I'm so proud of, because right now, the way our culture is, right, and what the status quo is that currently incarcerated people or formerly incarcerated people, you come and you volunteer your time. Right. And after volunteering, we say thank you for helping the movement and give them a swift boot to the butt. Right. We at EBC said that's not good enough. Right. We need to compensate people who are directly impacted. We need to compensate folks who are currently incarcerated who's doing this work. And I want to say that's the thing I'm most proud of the culture and the models that we're building. That is not just for us at EBC, but that's for everybody, that they can pick up and replicate it at your nonprofit, at your organization if you chose to.
That's right. And I was just reminded while you were speaking, like folks who are currently incarcerated, who are stepping into this movement work, bring so many skills, but they're often speaking into a void. For instance, when Dortel calls into a call, he often can't see or feel or hear the responses. It will be a day at best when we're able to share with Steve or Mara how their presentations landed, thank them for their contributions. And I want to come back to you, Issa, because to Tan's point about the value and contributions of currently incarcerated people, I know that there was a moment in the AB 292 lobbying and ledge visits that just like really spoke to like some of the contributions that folks can make from there. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. I think, something that really became abundantly clear. And as we did this fellowship was just the ever continuing examples of what becomes possible when currently incarcerated folks are leading this work, and are given that we're prioritizing giving the space for them and the resources for them to really lead this work. I would say that there's no greater legislative advocate than our inside fellows, especially Tom. And I remember being in a particularly difficult meeting with the legislator about AB 292, which is the Access to Programming Act. For me, this was the first bill that I had ever worked on. I came into the fellowship. I didn't know what AB, SB, any of that stuff stood for. And it was my first time also working with Tan on the bill as fellows together. And Tan unexpectedly called me because it was also during COVID and we didn't have like these set schedules of when we could have access to phones. And I did the thing where I told her, I was like, Tan, you're on speakerphone and there's a legislator here and I need you to convince them to support support AB 292. And yeah, Tan, shout out to you. You were just such a champ about all of this. But, our bill was trying to give access to programming to folks inside, even amidst lockdowns, like what was happening real time during the COVID pandemic. And I remember the legislator thought, it makes sense to cancel programs during an outbreak for safety of folks. And Tom responded that, like, amidst these supposed lockdowns happening across California prisons, CDCR was mandating folks to work in the prison factories for PIA, Prison Industry Authority, for profit. And so it wasn't a matter of safety or controlling COVID, of keeping people in cages, when folks were actually being mandated to work in the prison factories at that time. And I just saw the whole room change, like the legislator changed their mind, and just like the face completely shifted. And I think that simple point really completely shifted the tone of the ledge visit. We got the vote and we were able to pass that really important legislation. And I think that is just like one example. Dortel continues to lead organizing work for folks who are currently incarcerated, serving life without the possibility of parole sentences. Like, I remember Dortel and I worked with folks like Jerry Silva from Families United Against to End LWOP, like Joanne Shear from Felony Murder Elimination Project. And we did this action mobilizing faith leaders and faith-based organizations across California in support of SB 300, which is EBC's first ever time co-sponsoring legislation that would impact folks serving life without the possibility of parole sentences. And the work we did, and the talking points that Dortel led, and the connections that he made, and the churches, and all of the groups that he reached out to, really helped us to have essential conversations with legislators who I couldn't get an email back from. I couldn't get an answer to a knock on the door from. But there he was talking to folks about the moral issue of sentencing someone to a life without the possibility of parole sentence. And that's something that is just not possible to do if we're not being led in a really strategic and meaningful and resourced way by our currently incarcerated organizers.
Thank you. Tan, I just want to come back to you, because you were obviously in that room. You had that experience of lobbying for AB 292. You were not just gifted at speaking in the lobbying visits, but gifted at getting to the phone in time to speak on them, and navigating all of the barriers and challenges that came with being incarcerated and trying to plug into this work. Can you speak a little bit to those challenges, and and what it was like to speak into that void, so to speak, in some of the ways that Dortel is right now?
Right. Yeah, I'll start with the void part first. Like, one thing that's so interesting and is a weird dynamic is that, Issa is telling y'all right now about this reaction that these legislators had. Like, all I could see, I was on a payphone, and all I could see is just brick walls around me, and I'm just telling them what's going on. Like, I can't see any reaction from legislators. I don't know how it's being received. I don't know if I'm effective or not. So it was kind of like a weird dynamic where you just do your best and hope for the best. And that's what I always did. And that was a struggle too at the same time, is because you don't know how you're being received, right? You don't know if you're being effective. So as a person who's so passionate about this work, I want to know, am I making a difference? Do I need to pivot or adjust? So that was one difficulty for sure, speaking into the void. But then now, like you named, there was difficulties of using that payphone. It was a super struggle to get on a payphone, to plug into coalition meetings. It was a struggle to be able to check in with Issa and with you, right? But every time we made it happen though, despite the struggles, we still wiggled. I found ways to wiggle out of my cell and hide for a little bit as the COs were locking cells, and I'll run to the payphone and call the payphone. I'll be like, Issa, I got 5 minutes. Here's everything that's happening in prison, right? So it's there was struggles, but we found ways around it out of love and desire and curiosity, and love and desire and passion is how we were able to get beyond those barriers and all those struggles. Because when there's a will, there's a way, and we had a whole lot of will, right? And I also want to name too, it's a major, one of the major difficulties during this lockdown, during this whole thing, was that, the COVID hit and the pandemic hit. and there's all this organizing, and we're wishing on a prayer that something will happen and change, right? And Issa named that you read my letter in front of San Quentin describing the conditions that we were experiencing on the inside. And I just want to say that it's a testament of the will and the spirit in our work that I'm sitting here today talking to everybody in this crowd, because 5 months ago, I was on the inside and I was wishing on a prayer and I was struggling and I was facing 23-hour lockdowns. But then it was the will and the desire and the love and the compassion of everybody who's in this work that brought me home, and it's going to continue to bring people home. So I just want to name that too. We're going to talk about difficulties. I want to talk about the power that exists in the room also.
Thank you, Ton. We were able to get, Dortel was away for a moment, but he's back. And I just want to let Dortel have the final word as we begin to wrap. Dortel, you've been leading efforts around criminal justice reform for years. And your even though your fellowship cycle is about to end, could you talk about how this fellowship has allowed you to build long-term power and what you plan to do with it going forward?
Continue to do this work. I can continue to share the information from the outside so that we can take that information, we can double it up like we used to say on the streets. We can, use so many different creative ways to, like Tom said, come up with ways that are specific to our needs here and for transforming our daily lives. And so I'm going to continue to speak that information. I'm going to continue to share that information. And like I said, you're talking to one Dortel now, but as I get this information and as I share this information, and like I said, people transfer and they go home, you're talking to 1,000 Dortel. So that's this call and.
Yeah, I just want to say we're getting word that Dortel is speaking, but it's not carrying over to YouTube. So Dortel's response was, you're sending information to you think you're sending information to one Dortel, but it's actually going to 1,000 Dortels. Every time his name is called for mail, folks know that he's getting resources, that he's getting information, and information is power. So the things that we are sending him, the contributions, are being magnified all throughout the prison. And I just want to thank Dortel, Issa, and Tom for such a rich conversation. I also don't want to forget the recorded contributions of Steve and Mara and acknowledge the work that goes into ensuring their voices are heard as well. Many, many years ago, I was mentored by Dortel. Years later, Tom and I organized side by side while both incarcerated. While there's a lot of more work to be done, I hope people are able to see the humanity and love that powers this movement, and that as we invest in the strengths of those who society shuns, we move closer to freedom daily. We're not replicating the systems that are oppressing and attempting to dehumanize us, but instead affirming our belief that people will always move towards freedom. Can we bring back Marlene? Hey, Marlene, how are you? How are you feeling?
Well, that explains it. Thank you, James. Thank you, James. And my heart is full. with all the lessons and all the gems that were dropped here tonight. Just want to thank our amazing panelists and, of course, our amazing moderator. Thank you, James. It's been great to hear all of the directly from folks around this fellowship. I also just want to say that what folks have heard here tonight have been strategy. They have been lessons. They have been calls to action in terms of what it takes to build power in places that by design are meant to dehumanize us, by design are meant to strip us from our power. Dortel said something that was so profound. He said, the seeds of democracy are bursting through our families, and he is planting and watering those seeds. And so thank you, Dortel, Steve, Mara, Ton, Isa, all the amazing folks who are doing the work every day, day in and day out. Angela Davis said, prisons don't disappear problems, they disappear people. And we have been really intentional about visibilizing the leaders of today and creating that pipeline for leadership and for power. The fellowship, the fellows are in rooms with policymakers, changing policies that sometimes, like Isa said, don't impact them directly, but will eventually. Most importantly, we are building community. We are deepening our relationships with each other. Separation and narratives, them versus us, good versus bad, are tools of the oppressor. We know firsthand that these are the efforts that allow us to dismantle those tools, that help us build self-determination and power so that we can't be divided. We have been listening and listening very closely and leaning into those lessons. And you heard from Ton mention a few times an initiative that we launched called We Mentor Us. And that is because that is what we're doing. We are mentoring us. We are going to be multiplying these opportunities by investing in membership, in mentorship, in leadership training, creating spaces to develop new strategies and collaborations from the inside and outside. I know many of you are probably asking, well, how do I get involved? What do I do? Well, you're right on time, because we are getting ready to do our annual holiday mailer to about 9,000 people and growing thanks to new fellows in new prisons like Mara. We are writing to folks on a regular. And so we need your support. We need your support, not only financially, but with time. We want your support in bringing hope and love and critical information, like you heard from Dortel, into places where folks can use them as tools for liberation. So thank you. I know we are at time, but my heart is full, and I'm so grateful to have spent an evening with you all, and continue to stay tuned. I know there's links in the chat. But just immense gratitude to everybody, and just so honored to be working side by side with folks. Thank you again for your time, and I look forward to building with you. Ashe.
Feeling something special for you. And now you got me thinking till the sun comes up. Daylight in my mind is dreaming. And I'm saying too much couldn't be enough. But I'll be waiting for the moment to take me to you. Just a couple steps from going over the moon. I wanna move with your body, baby. I wanna move with your body, baby. I wanna move with your body, baby. Let me move with your body, baby.
dark until the first light of dawn.